Hi, good morning, afternoon, and evening. How's the sound? Is the sound coming through? Thank you, Ariana. You're here. Thank you for being here. Kelly is here. Beth is here. Great. Wonderful. It's been a while. I'm always afraid I'm gonna forget things, turn on things, gables and stuff, but it's only been 2 weeks. But I was in a bit of a flow, and well, then migraines happened and stuff, but we're back, we're here. All right, so I did a little bit of preparation so that we can get started, or I can get started on painting a little bit quicker. And I will tell you what I did in terms of preparation. I'm going to be painting on some paper that I gessoed. I put some gesso on it, and then I tinted it with some acrylic raw umber. It's basically the same. Sorry, I'm just gonna, look up my reference photo. It's basically the same process that I follow when I do oil on panel, all right? But now it's paper because I have no intention of keeping this. Paper's a bit cheaper. It's cheaper. All right, here I have a selection. I thought about putting all the pigments on here, but I would probably overwhelm myself. But I will show you here what I picked from the last 3 live streams, which is the Old Holland Green Earth. So that was the colder one. I have the Michael Harding Raw Umber, which has a gray undertone. I have the Old Holland Raw Umber that turned out to be remarkably warm. I have the Michael Harding Burnt Sienna and the Old Holland Raw Sienna Deep and Titanium White. I mixed some of them into a little bit of a gradient so you can actually see what I'm talking about when I say gray and warm, etc., because these dark colors don't really show. And I think this is a good selection. I'm just gonna start putting some stuff in and talk a little bit, try and get in the flow. Oh, Libby is here. Hi, Libby. You're not late. We're always very on time. This reference photo is from the set that I shot for Dylan and Shannon, and I think I made pretty good use out of it. But I'm sick and tired of it, so we need new photos that are not me. Why am I using this tiny brush? That's better. Let's talk about limited palettes and what it means when you limit your palette, because the word limited palette works, I found, really well on YouTube. Like, people engage to the word limited palette, and I feel like it has to do with the overwhelm that some people feel when they start painting, or even when they have been painting for a while, but they want to, you know, expand a little bit, and you get into the world of color, and it just hits you like a brick. And then limited palette, I remember that as well. It sounds really great, and it is. But the one thing that I didn't realize when I started learning was that there are several ways that you can limit yourself. And the limitation itself is there so that you don't have to process huge amounts of information at once. Because I think that we've, for the most part, have proven that humans process information better when it's limited and when it's focused. So when I started learning about limited palettes, I was a little bit confused, because I was familiar with the Zorn palette. I was familiar with a lot of duochromatic palettes, or simply black and white. But then I went into the red, blue, and yellow palette, which is a difficult palette to work with in portraiture when you have very little experience. On the other hand, I thought to myself, I only have 3 colors, which, you know, when you think about it, it's the same thing as a Zorn palette, which is also 3 colors in white. So I was really confused about, you know, why is this not called a limited palette and something like a Zorn palette is? And then somebody explained to me and said, you know, the limitation is not always in the amount of tubes of paint, but also in limiting yourself in the chromatic range. And that word was like, okay, I heard it somewhere, but I'm not really sure how to interpret it. I worked in digital imaging for a while, so I was familiar with the concept of saturation. So it didn't take me a long time to learn. It did take me a long time to understand why it is important to limit that chromatic range, especially in portraiture. So looking at this, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tubes out, which is in no way limited in terms of amounts. But it is limited in its chromatic range, where the burnt sienna that we have is now our most chromatic color. And burnt sienna is not very high on the Munsell chart. So the maximum amount of chroma that we can add to our portrait is burnt sienna. All right. So for me, the question was always, how do I divide what I have over, this is a dirty brush, over my highlights and my lights and my darks, right? So for this portrait, it makes sense, if you look at a reference photo, to put the yellow tones that we have into the lighter part. And save the burnt sienna for the midtones. And then this is what is left for the darks. And you can turn this around. I mean, there's no rule that says you have to do this. For me, it's just, right now it makes sense when you look at a reference photo. But let's say that you had a black and white reference photo, or simply want to do something else. I hate this angle so much. Like, I don't know why I shot this weird angle. I like being a little bit like creative with my reference photos, but then when I have to paint it, I'm like, yeah, okay, that's not easy at all. Right, there's a hand somewhere here. Procreate in bed sounds really good, Ariana. I actually, I've been convincing myself for years to buy an iPad. But I can't justify it just yet. I do have art supplies by my bedside, though. Yeah, I think those are the lightest lights. So the darkest darks are the hair, basically, and I think maybe part of my eye socket, what's it called? Eye socket, eyebrow eye socket. What kind? I don't know. The expensive kind. They're all expensive. I had an iPad 10 years ago, and this is the problem with having equipment for a long time, that by the time that you need to replace it, the prices have quadrupled. So I remember when I had to buy a new iMac because my computer was so old. It was unreal. And I just cried for days. I did not know they got so expensive. Oh, okay, supplies. Mostly dry media. Yeah, paint in bed is like you said, not a great idea. So I do have some sketchbooks, and I have this box of dry media. Yo, let me show you here. It's filled with junk. Can you see it? And I just dump stuff in it, and I just carry it around because it's easy. So I don't have to look up stuff, and then you're on the couch and your cat is on your lap, and then you think, oh, I'm missing an eraser, or I wish I had some charcoal. So I just have stuff lying around. Yeah, trays are also really convenient. I like how every creative eventually resorts to the same stuff, like trays. I literally have a tray on which I do not serve drinks because I don't see the point, but just for art supplies and a cup of water and paint and stuff like that. All right, we have some eyes here that we need to... And then we have some dark areas between the fingers that I want to put in before we continue. There's some sunlight coming in. It looks very artistic. We're just gonna turn up the I'm just gonna turn up the LED light. Or can I open my... Hold on. That's better. Yep. So we're in a bit of a strange time right now where I still have some daylight outside, and then during the live stream the daylight goes away and I have to adjust my my lighting. But this looks very artistic. I like it. What do we have here? Beth says we all make a nest. Yeah, it's like nesting. A zipper pouch I carried around with me. Cool. Yeah, I also have a zipper pouch kind of that I got from a friend that I fill it up and I take it with me when I go on a bus or a train or whatever. It's just, we have art supplies everywhere. As long as we have art supplies, we're good, right? Like sometimes, especially when I'm in public transport, and sometimes it's just really crowded, so I don't really do anything, but just the knowledge that you have some of that with you sort of calms me down a little bit. All right. Emotional support arts, yeah, especially that. Yeah, knitting too. Yeah, I like bringing my knitting as well. I feel like, especially since Corona, knitting and crocheting has become, again, a little bit more popular, a little bit more mainstream. So I'm not so weirded out by knitting in public or something like that. People used to think that was really, really weird. Not in the 80s, no. I was born in the 80s. I tried to crochet in the 90s, and everybody was like, what are you doing? Fast fashion is a thing. I love how we're so, like, so similar. Let's see. All right. I want to put in. So, what I try to do is kind of get those planes. That's sort of light plane, and then you have this dark plane. It has to do with the lighting that creates almost the darkest shadow. It has a name, but I don't know what the English word is. And then you have the shadow here, which is usually a little bit lighter than here. I try to cool that down a little bit to see what the effect is. But here in this transition, I'll probably like to add a little bit of warmth. That looks really, really pink, right? It's just like value, chroma is relative to its surrounding, its neighboring colors. And this is, I think, also partially what makes working with color difficult, because not only are your values relative to their the way you perceive them relative to their neighboring, their surrounding values, but your colors are as well. I'm gonna add that shadow there. One of the things that I found imperative in learning to control this was to do it. And I know some of you are like, yeah, duh, but I tend to overthink everything. And what I end up doing is I end up reading a lot and processing a lot of information in my head and not translating that to actual paintings. And the issue with that is that you're processing literal information, so information in the form of words or YouTube videos, but often I read. And the thing with this is that part of your brain needs to be trained to see stuff and then translate it correctly into knowing what to do. And the only way that you can achieve that is by repeating the action, right? So that your eyes and your brain can see what is going on. And again, I know that for a lot of people, this sounds really logical, but for me, the issue with self-teaching is that sometimes you make these really illogical choices in learning something that makes sense to you, but just aren't very effective. I'm glad you understand me, Beth. All right. So, you want to let me know how you're doing or what you've been up to. I would love to hear that. I don't want to ramble on for an hour. Had a bit of a rough week, so I'm not entirely coherent. Art-wise, I've just enjoyed anything you want. Anything you want. I feel like our art and our general lives are so very intertwined that I often don't really feel there's a difference. You sound great. I would never know. I know. Yeah, fortunately, I do present pretty well. drink something. Got the Michael Harding Raw Umber and the Old Holland Green Earth in. I'm scrolling through reference photos, seeing if I have anything that would work to play along with you. Great. Because I remember, I think, Kelly, that you were really drawn to the Rublev Antica Green, the olive color, colored one. You went for the Old Holland, which is a great color. Nothing incoherent. Awesome. Yeah, play mode. I wish we all had a button for play mode. I get it. Like, I don't really understand why it's such an issue as well. If you want to elaborate on that, I'm pretty sure a lot of it will resonate. All right, let's see how we're... I'm so in love with the Rublev. It is beautiful, yes. Yeah, it is. It's really, like I said to you, Kelly, like it's one of those colors that make you go, yeah, come here, please. And I bought it online, so I just had like the online photos and stuff, and I was so happy with it, and I still am. But yeah, sometimes you gotta make practical choices as well, which is why we have a lot of tubes. Yeah. I hope it doesn't break. I had some trouble with the caps from Rublev, so I hope it doesn't break. All right. I need to put some structure in here. I like how this, and this is why I learned to reappreciate raw sienna again, especially in the lights. I find it a really easy pigment to work with, easier than yellow ochre. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it in previous live streams, but I think one of the reasons why I gravitate more towards raw sienna is because it has a bit more orange than yellow ochre, which for me keeps it a little bit more in the range of, towards the reddish, whereas yellow ochre for me, and it depends a little bit on which yellow ochre you have, but it often goes, for me, it's almost as if it's too flat, a little bit too flat. But like I said, it's very nuanced. And also the same thing goes for ochres, that goes for umbers, is that they can differ a lot. Like the one ochre is not the other ochre. All right, we have, it's almost 40 minutes. So I thought about doing this portrait in 2 sessions. That's mainly because I am still a little bit insecure about my ability to paint something in about an hour, but I'm not terribly motivated to work on this painting an awful lot more. So I'm thinking a little bit ahead about what I want to do in the next live sessions. And one of the things that have been, that has occupied my mind a little bit lately is learning. And for me, basically, that means reading a lot of books and that's really crappy. Reading a lot of books and painting a lot of paintings by other people. Hi, Linda. So what I want to do in the next couple of live streams, I'm not really sure. How many I want to do, but do a couple of studies. On paintings, existing paintings that, you know, we can focus on. I look like a raccoon. I don't know how I did this, but that's not good. I'm just gonna keep talking. So learning with paintings, and recently I've been doing, maybe you saw it in my stories, a couple of paintings by Susan Robertson, who I like very much, and I kind of want to do paintings of women, by women, sorry, not of women. There are a lot of paintings of women. Study with women, basically. We're going to call it study with the girls. I want to do the whole, no, wait, it's one stone, two birds, two stones, one bird. One stone, two birds. Anyways, I just want to get two things at the same time. I want to talk about women. I want to paint what women have painted. I want some incentive and some motivation for me to read more about women and what they painted and blah, blah, blah. So I read a lot about it, and then I want to do something with it. I am not the kind of person to make all sorts of YouTube videos about issues this and issues that, because it's just going to get me all riled up and pissed off and etc. So let's just paint, right? That was basically the gist of my idea. I have quite a few lined up that I want to do. So, two birds. Yes, two birds, one stone. Or three birds, one stone's also good. So that, one of the reasons why I got into my learning kick again was also partially because I was just really nervous about the competition that I had entered and then got kicked out of, gently, but still. So my bruised ego was like, let's upgrade my skill set. So that's how I work. I'm fascinated with people who do stuff like Let's Face It. I know some of you do it. And just like keep that up. That, you know, I don't know, I see it as willpower or something, or some kind of discipline. I have trouble getting myself to study and you know, focusing on stuff that I want to improve, etc., etc. But getting kicked out of a competition that I was kind of hoping I would get in definitely motivates you to get better. All right. Women can paint. Yes, we can. Yes. Linda says, hi, I'm on meds today. Back. Oh, no. Can't remember everyone's name. No worry. We're just going to be the Spice Girls for you today. please take care of your back. I have a friend whose back just quits on her every now and then. That is awful. Like, that is an awful kind of pain. What was the name of the competition? It was the Dutch Portrait Prize. Nederlandse Portretprijs. Yeah, the Dutch Portrait Prize. And it was about portraits. So I was like, cool, I do portraits. And I got pretty far. And then I got kicked out. Yeah. Reconnaissance mission, yes. We will. So for those who don't know it, there's going to be a show of the 50 portraits that were selected, and then from those 50 portraits they select one winner and a runner-up and a third-up or something. And it's actually here in my hometown, so that's too light. So yeah, we can go check that out to see who beat me. I have to say though, we do have a lot of good artists in our tiny country. Yeah, we're the Spice Girls. Well, we're definitely spicy. That's good. All right. So I want to see if I can show you something, if I can find a clean brush. And this is something that I've recently been just gonna zoom in a little bit. Just gonna crank up the light also. All right, I'm kind of hoping you can see it. So here we have the raw sienna, which, like I said, is a yellow orangey color with a relatively light value here. And what I often struggle with in my highlights is they look flat and a little bit boring. And I recently came across a video by Arthur Gain, Gain as in Gain, and you can run him through YouTube and you will find some of his videos, which are great. And he was talking about something called complex highlights. Basically highlights made up out of two different colors. And what he did was really interesting. He would make his highlights pink or yellow or orangey, and then he would add light blue or light green. And at first you go like, oh, what? Did somebody slap me with bubble gum? But when you look at it from a little bit of a distance, or when you let it sink in a little bit, what it adds for me is color variation. And color variation, apparently, or at least I've learned, equals dynamic. And what happens is that not only does the green look greener or colder compared to the relatively warm surrounding, but the yellow also looks less flat. So this is something that you can experiment with, that I try to experiment a little bit with, to keep my highlights, my lightest lights, a little bit more colorful. Yeah, so to add more chroma, to counteract the lack of chroma in white, and to create what you could basically call multicolored highlights. And in real life, this is probably not something that you will see very often, unless you put different colored lights on your face. But even then, and this is something that I feel works in a painting, but doesn't really reflect actual real life. So that's my tip for today, that I wanted to let you know. Also, because this palette, in by its nature, is quite it can get quite dull, right? Like I said before, you have a limited chroma, but even with limited chroma, when you put these warmer colors next to the green, they will create this contrast that that is interesting. Let me read the comments for a sec. Yeah, I'm glad you like it, Libby. It's definitely something that you can try out a little bit. It's easy to try out also. You can do complementary colors, but warm and cold together generally works pretty well. And yeah, it does look mint green. It's kind of a minty color to begin with, but the two kind of complement each other when they're on top of each other. Am I still? Yeah, I'm still closed up. Great. I'm gonna leave it at this for today. I hope that I gave you a little bit of an idea of how you can distribute your chroma, your temperature across a painting. This is by no means done. Maybe I'll do a little bit more. I have so much paint out, it's ridiculous. I'll probably paint a little bit more tomorrow. So next week, I kind of want to start doing some studies after paintings done by women. So I have a bit of a short list, but I'm definitely open to suggestions. If there's, if there are female artists that you like, and would like to see featured. Yeah, that's it. All right, Linda, take care of your back. I hope it gets better. And thank you for joining. Thank you, Libby. You bring me comfort as well. Thank you, Beth, for also always showing up. Ariana, if you're still awake or haven't fallen asleep, if so, I don't mind. A day with grandkids is great, but exhausting. And George O'Keefe, yes, George O'Keefe. I will definitely write that one down for the list. All right, thank you again for showing up for the Spice Girls weekly painting session. And I will see you next week on Wednesday, hopefully again. Bar any migraines, we're going to go to the Wednesday evening. Frida Kahlo is Frida Kahlo is great. Right, I'm going to write all that down, add it to the list, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.